I am going to recommend 3 books from every single book genre that I could find from the books that I have read. Now, we are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 genres. Genres is a contested subject, okay? But I did a quick Google, I did some Reddit searching, and these genres that I have picked, I think are covering the majority of the bases. Now, obviously I do have favourites. I particularly only read like 3 genres, but I'm going to recommend 3 out of all of the ones that I found. We're going to start off with thriller because that is my personal favourite. I actually do not have the first one that I'm going to recommend because I lent it to someone and then never got it back. And it breaks me to have to buy it again. But the first one is going to be Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Now, this is, if you are just getting into thriller, this one's messed up, okay? It is, Gillian Flynn is the person who wrote Gone Girl. So we're at that kind of level of messed up, okay? But my personal fave, it is my favourite thriller I have ever read. If you have watched the Skyward adaptation, I would still say read it. It is better. The book is better than the adaptation. And I'm not somebody who always says the book is better. I'm not. That book is better. If you haven't watched the Skyward show, definitely read it. Definitely read it. If you don't know the twists in this book, read it. It is so good. But I will say, trigger warnings. It's a messed up book, okay? Don't read it if you're not in a good mental space. It's messed up. But I would say it's the top thriller I've ever read. Next one. We will go with Lisa Jewell. Lisa Jewell is a very big author in this space. She has plenty. I have... How many do I have? Can you... No, you can't see that shelf. Suffice to say, on this bookshelf, there is definitely more Lisa Jewell books. This is my favourite. This is the one that I could not put down. Was it the first one that I read? I think it might have been. Now, controversial for book recommendations video. I'm not going to tell you what these are about, especially for thrillers, because for me, thrillers are the best going into them. The less you know, the better, okay? So, I'm not going to tell you what it's about. Sharp Objects, not going to tell you what it's about. The Family Upstairs, I'm not going to really tell you what it's about, but I'll give you the vibe, okay? All of these thrillers aren't really crime. I would say crime is a similar genre. I haven't done a crime genre because it's not my favourite, but all of these aren't heavy on crime, they're heavy on thriller. To be honest, I could read you the blurb for this one because it's not that great. In a large house in London's fashionable Chelsea, a baby is awake in her cot, well fed and cared for. She is happily waiting for somebody to pick her up. In the kitchen lie 3 decomposing corpses, close to them a hastily scrawled note. They've been dead for several days. Who has been looking after the baby and where did they go? And to be honest, it was a while. I think it's probably been like 3 years since I read this, but I can remember how much I loved it. I think I read it in 2 days, and I am not a quick reader. That's not me. I am not reading hundreds of books at a time, but I read it in 2 days. But this is definitely one of Lisa Jewell's better works in my opinion. I'm a love or hate. I either love the book or I'm like, that wasn't very good. This, loved it. The sequel to this, did not love, but the first one, highly recommend. Okay, last one in the thrillers section. This was one of the very first thrillers that I loved, and it is Before I Go to Sleep by S.J. Watson. Again, there is an adaptation of this. It's a film with Nicole Kidman and Colin Firth. Again, the book is so much better. It is so much better because they actually did change a key element in the film, which made sense because of the medium that it was being done, but this, better. I actually remember when I read this book, I stayed up till 3 a.m. to finish this book because I could not stop reading. And then I bought the movie because I was so desperate to watch the movie and was disappointed, I'm not gonna lie. This is so much better. The main premise of this is there is a lady who has amnesia, and it is the type of amnesia that every night when you go to sleep, she forgets everything. So it's kind of like her trying to figure out her life, and it is a thriller, so there is plenty twists and turns. This one is definitely more like not messed up. Obviously it is messed up, it's a thriller, they're all a little bit like, but I would say if you're just getting into thriller, this one is an excellent starting point. Okay, moving on genres. I will say though, with every book that I recommend, please go read the blurb. If you want to read other reviews, please do. I'm not saying you're going to absolutely love this is just my recommendations. So please do your due diligence to see if you're actually going to enjoy the book. Don't just blindly take my word for it. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to move on to fantasy. And I don't have to go far. She's facing forward because she's so good. If you've watched any book recommendation videos before regarding fantasy, I'm sure you've seen this girl. I'm sure you've seen The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Is she intimidating? Yes. She's a big girl. She's a big girl, and I get that. I get she's intimidating. She was on my shelf for a lot longer before I read it because it was scary. But I had a lot of people say, you need to read this book. You need to read this book. And if you are looking for high fantasy, huge world building, like think like Lord of the Rings level type of world building. This can't be beaten in my opinion. It is so good, and you do not feel like you are reading a Bible. Like, you don't feel like you're reading the world's longest book. I actually, controversially, think the ending felt rushed. Again, I'm not going to tell you the blurb. I'm not going to take up time by reading the blurb. If you're interested, go read the blurb. But this, if you're looking for a big, juicy, high fantasy book to get your teeth into and be reading for a while, excellent. And the other three now? Two? Can't remember. Two? The other two are just as good. I've just finished reading the third one that came out last month. Love it. So you have this one, you have the prequel, which is here. Again, another big one. But I would highly recommend The Priory of the Orange Tree. That is the only one that I'm going to recommend that is like a big high fantasy book. The rest are a little bit shorter, a little bit different. This one I actually think might be a little controversial because I read this one. I don't read reviews before I read books because it puts me off. When I read this, loved it, 5-star, went and tracked my review. People didn't like it as much, but I personally loved Faebound. This is by Saara El-Arifi. I just really like this book. Obviously, we're not talking big high fantasy, like I said. It is high fantasy. It's just not like world building, oh my god, deep kind of level. She's a good introductory book. So high fantasy just means that it is not related to our life at all. Low fantasy is like, it's set on Earth, it's set here, but we just have like magic and stuff. This is in its own world. This has its own rules, but I absolutely love it, and I think the cover is just stunning. I'm very excited to read the sequel for this. The next one, I actually didn't know whether we include it here or in YA. It definitely has more of a YA feel than the other two. They feel like adult books. This feels like more of a YA book. It is still high fantasy, so set in its own world, but it just feels a little bit like, not lower stakes, because the whole premise is that an 18-year-old girl is killed quite regularly, but it just definitely feels more YA. So should I read the blurb for this one? The basic premise for this is there is a boy king who takes a new bride every night and then kills her in the morning. And the premise is following the girl who, I think it's her sister has happened to. So she volunteers to see basically what on earth is happening. And that's all I'm going to say for it. Okay, moving on to YA. I have included ones that I would say are more like new adult in this, but I feel like YA is a really, as well, a contested genre, because some people say that it's not a genre, it's just a writing style or an intended audience. I have decided to include YA. So we're going to get the obvious one straight out of the way. The Hunger Games. Now, I'm sure a lot of you watching this video have already read this anyway, but I just think there is no better YA book than The Hunger Games. I think Suzanne Collins is an excellent writer. I remember the first time I read The Hunger Games when I was like 16, feeling so baffled at how easy I was reading this. Like, it didn't even feel like reading. It was so easy to get through the words. And I am putting the first one here. This is the entire series. I think Songbirds is excellent. Sunrise on the Reaping is my favourite book I have read this year. So it is the entire series. I will say, if you have seen the movies and you haven't read the books, please read the books. I just made my partner read the books for the first time because he's watched the films, and I was like, please just read the books because they provide so much more depth. I think you get to know the characters better, and it's just a fun experience to read these books. They are excellently written, they are so easy to read, and they are just as good as the films. Next up we have The Luminaries by Suzanne Dennard. The cover, me and my partner have both read this book, so the gilding has come off, but I just want to highlight, if you know the channel, you'll be sick of me talking about this book because I think it's one of the most stunning books I own. That is the side. I now have the entire trilogy, so this is more for subscribers, but we now have the full collection. She's beautiful. This was a Waterstones exclusive and I just found it beautiful. So there is 3 books in this trilogy. That did disappoint me. I really wanted this to be a series. I wanted there to be more books, but unfortunately it is just a trilogy. And I would say if you are watching this video around the time that it comes out, so October, read this then. This is such a good October-September read. It is so spooky but not scary. It is definitely not a horror book. It has that tension in it, and the world that it is in, this is low fantasy, so it is set in our world but it is like different, but the world that the part of the world that it is set in is it is just perfect for this time of year. I'm not saying don't read it at any point of the year, but I'm just saying if you're watching this on the lead up or in September, October time, It's a perfect time to read this book. The last one is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. I just adore this book. Again, I bought it because it is so freaking pretty. I think that cover is stunning, and we do have the edges. Again, a Waterstones exclusive. Hopefully they're still about if you want this version. This was the book that made me want to put young adult in there because I just think it's such a good fantasy book, but within the new adult, young adult. It definitely has some maturer themes in this. I'd maybe say this is like bordering the line between young adult and new adult, but I love this book. I love this book. This one is one of the sequels for this book. I love it. It will always be a favourite of mine. And she is one of my forward-facing books because I love her so much. The next genre, I struggled on what to call it, so we're just going to call it novels. You can say drama, you can say just fiction, but we're just going novels, okay? Stories. Aren't like romance, mystery, thriller. I struggled, but these are just novels. We're going to start with my all-time favourite book of all time, and that is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. This was the first Taylor Jenkins Reid book that I had ever read, and I demolished it in 2 days. I adored this book. You have probably heard of it. It was a big book on TikTok. It is bordering on like historical. It's set 50s, but I would just say I do think going into this, the little you know the better, but I adore this book. Next one. This one's seasonal, but I really wanted to put it in a category because it's just such a wholesome book, and it is Gifts by Laura Barnett. I picked this up last Christmas because I wanted to read a Christmas book. It was the second one that I read, and it is so wholesome. It is nice and short. It's lovely. It doesn't, obviously I've put it in the novel category, but it doesn't read like a novel. It reads just like life, and you're going through different people at Christmas just in their life. I think it is beautiful. It is wholesome. If you are wanting a book to read around Christmas, this is it. I loved this book. I honestly think I might reread it again this year. It is just one of those feel-good books. Okay, finally, Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. I have included this in this category. I would say it's historical fiction, but I've included it in this category because it's one of my all-time favourite books. It has twists and turns. It is thick. It's a big book, but I would say it's worth it. If you're not a big historical fiction fan, I would say maybe give this one a miss, but I love this book. It is full of twists and turns. It was one I put off reading for so long because it is listed in nearly every single blog post you will find about books with twists, but I was put off by how big she is, but it was worth it in the end. I really enjoyed reading this one. Next up, sci-fi. Now you're gonna have to take this with a little pinch of salt. I don't like sci-fi. So I haven't read a huge amount of sci-fi books. 2 of them that are in here, I think I'm being very lax with the term sci-fi, and one of them I haven't even read. But we're going to go through them anyway because I wanted to include it as a genre because people love it. But I'm just saying I might not be the best judge of character for sci-fi. We're going to go with the one that I feel like people are going to judge the most. And we're going with Iron Widow by Xiran Zhao. Now, this is listed as sci-fi on Storygraph, okay? So if anybody comes for me, on Storygraph it does say sci-fi as well as fantasy. It's blending fantasy and sci-fi together, but this is an excellent book. It is so good. It is worth the hype. I will say it also is very actiony. I think it blends war kind of stories in with these, which again isn't my favourite. I don't really like war books. The Poppy War is not in this video for that reason. War just isn't my type of genre, and I would say it blends those 3 together really nicely, but it has a very good story and I loved the ending. So I would say this is worth the hype. Next up, again, people are going to judge me. It's definitely a YA book, The Maze Runner by James Dashner. Now, if you've seen the movies, I have beef with The Maze Runner. I have big beef with the Maze Runner movies because these books, after I watched the first movie, bought them straight away. They're actually the first purchase me and my partner ever made together. We bought all of them. So I read the books before the second and third movie came out. I had major beef. Let's just say the films are very, very, very different. Books, excellent, good. Not the biggest fan of the very end, but on the lead up to it, loved it. Loved the Maze Runner books. If you've watched the films and haven't read the books, do yourself a favour. Enjoy the books. Enjoy them. They are so much better. If you haven't watched the films, even better. Just do this. Just do these. And then you can be disappointed at the films with me if that's what you really want to do. But I would just say books are way better. Okay, final one. You may say, why are you recommending this if you haven't read it? But my partner has, and he never shuts up about it. Sci-fi is his genre. It's his genre. But this is my YouTube channel. So I'm just going to recommend the book because he loves it so much. And that is Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is definitely somebody I think who you associate more with fantasy. But my partner never shuts up about this series. We have all of them behind me. There are 4 main books and there are 3 novellas, and he loves every single one of them. I can't tell you a thing, well, I can, because me and my partner love to do debriefs after reading, so I could tell you about it. I'm not going to, but this is a sci-fi book, like a meaty, like Star Wars kind of sci-fi. Read this. It is, even though I'm not going to read it because I don't like sci-fi, read it, it's good. Okay, we're going to do a little palette cleanser. We're going to do non-fiction. Non-fiction isn't one that I read regularly. I do enjoy a non-fiction book, but I don't read them a lot. I will say, if you are here and you are under 18, these 2 of these books aren't going to be for you, but I would still say save them in your mind and read them once you turn 18, if you can tell there's going to be a theme about them. We shall do the first one, which I think everybody has probably been recommended already, and that is Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Reni Eddo-Lodge. I just think this is a book that every white person should read. Obviously, a lot of people read this in lockdown when the BLM protests were happening, rightly so, but I'm just not going to stop recommending it. We should be reading it regardless of whether BLM protests are happening, because the problems are still happening. I just think it's one of those books that everybody should read. And on the same vein as that, this is a book that everybody who has a uterus or a vagina should read. This is Mind the Gap by Dr. Karen Gurney. I literally recommend this book to everyone. This is a book about desire. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase stuff. Desire and the gap that is between desire, between people with vaginas and people with penises. That's what this book is about and why it is the case. Obviously, it's written by a doctor. This is what she specialises in. She's brilliant. I'd follow her on Instagram as well. This book is heavily based on Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski, who is the pioneer of this type of stuff. But I really like the way this reads. I really like Dr. Karen Gurney. You might have seen her on Stephen Bartlett's podcast. Not my favourite guy in the world, but she is excellent. So I would recommend anybody, again, to read this book. Now the next one is similar vein. This one's just a bit more fun. So this is Sex Ed by Ruby Rare. I adore this book and I wish I could show you, but I think this video would get flagged. The illustrations in this book I love this book. I literally had it out the other day when I had friends over because I was like, read this please, look at this book, because I just think it's brilliant. It is basically sex ed for adults. That is how it is marketed, and that means because it's for adults it tells you things, and I just think it is so fun to read and so informative if you are not kind of like big in the sex ed sphere. I used to teach sex ed, so I love reading stuff like this, but I would just say everybody should read this book because it is so informative, fun, and without shame, and it tells you stuff in an adult way. And when do we ever get taught sex ed stuff as an adult that isn't certain sites? So I love it. I wish I could show you the illustrations. Is there one I can show you that isn't going to get flagged? Just to show you how pretty it is. Nope, that one's got vulvas. This one's got illustrations of boobs, but I think it should be okay. Like how? I love it. It is so fun. It is so pretty. It is such... I love this book. Okay, back to fiction. We are going to do historical next. We're going to start off with the light one, and that is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Now, this is obviously a classic. I'm sure you've heard of The Secret Garden, but I am woke, and all of the historical ones that I have read so far aren't fun to read. This one is. I think there's some stuff in here that I definitely wouldn't say is good, but we're not talking Sherlock Holmes when there's just random slurs popping up all over the place. I like The Secret Garden. I think I read it again last year and I just enjoyed it. It's just a nice, wholesome read that is just a classic. So I would say The Secret Garden is a good one. The other two are more modern classics. We have The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Like I said, woke. I think it is a book that everybody should read. I will say the TV show is better than the book. I found the book a little bit slow. I felt like not much really happened, but I don't think the book was there to be like what the TV show is. The TV show is like, here's content, here's a story, here is what is happening, whereas the book is very much like, imagine the world like this. It is there to make you think. But I will say everyone should read it and everyone should imagine what it would be like if we were in a world like this and why that's not good. Next one, similar kind of vein. It is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is having its moment at the minute. I'm pleased, I'm glad. I do have a genre coming up that's called thought-provoking, and I would say it should go in there, but this is an older book. It literally has like vintage written on it, so I put it on there. I only read it, I think I read it at the beginning of this year, and I will say I wish it hit a little bit harder. Like from the blurb, it is basically the premise is a person who has grown up in a world who has never known a man. And again, it is like A Handmaid's Tale, where it's not there for a story, it is there for you to think about the world that it would be if this happened. I'd also say this kind of goes in sci-fi as well a little bit. It is not just about growing up in a world that there has never been a man. There is kind of a sci-fi element along with this, but in a vintage way. It is an interesting book. I wouldn't say if you're wanting to sit down with like a novel and be like, ooh, read this. It is there to make you think. So it is a classic book, but it is also a thought-provoking book. Okay, penultimate genre. This is historical fiction, and I am emphasizing fiction. Fiction. We are not talking about non-fiction, we are talking about historical fiction. And I am emphasizing that because I'm going to recommend a Philippa Gregory book. She is not known for being accurate. So these books are taking something that happened in history and making up stories about it. I loved this book. I think I read this book when I was like 17, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say I can remember it, but I can remember loving it. It is about Mary Queen of Scots and Elizabeth I. I went through a phase of adoring Elizabeth I and reading a lot of books around her, around Anne Boleyn, and this was my favourite. I really enjoyed this book. I loved the drama around it. I know Philippa Gregory is not somebody who portrays things accurately, but I don't care. That's not what I'm after. I've read stuff, so I know what actually happened. This is just fun to read. Next one is Circe by Madeline Miller. Now, I am a known hater of Song of Achilles, but Circe, I adored this. I was not expecting good things when I read this because I read of A Song of Achilles first and I did not like, which is controversial. It is a renowned book, but I didn't enjoy it. So I was not expecting good things when I started this. I was sorely mistaken. It is one of my favourite books I've ever read. It is the story of Circe, who is it Greek or Roman? I can't remember which one it is. She's a Greek or Roman god's child. Please, history buffs, do not come for me. But it's that kind of vein. It is her life story. It is from beginning to end, and I adore that. I think it is brilliant, going from the start right till the end. Loved. Completely recommend. The next one, I for the life of me cannot find it on my bookshelves, which is worrying because it's one of my favourite books. I'm really worried that I'm going to be talking about this book and it's literally going to be sat behind me, but it's The Wolf Den. I actually bought this book because it was like everywhere in Waterstones. It was highly recommended. It was book of the month. The whole series, so there is 3 books in this series. I didn't rate the first one the highest. I rated the last one a 5-star. I just really enjoyed it. So it's basically, it is set in a brothel in Pompeii, and it is about the lives of the Greek slaves to the Romans, and one Greek slave in particular who starts her story off in a brothel. I adore it. It is such a good story. The entire series is great. I would highly, highly recommend it. Right, last one, we're going to do thought-provoking. Now, these are all novels again, so they are fiction, but I think they are books that the main thing is to think about them. First one I'm going to say is The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. It is about pretty much what it says on the tin. It is in our world, in a situation where if you have been found lacking in the government's eyes, you have to go to a school for good mothers. It is, again, not the biggest. I didn't find the story the best, but I thought about this for a long time after reading it, and I still do, and I think it puts you in a perspective that you might not have thought about. And it is written quite well. I did like it, and it will make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I think that's a good sign of a book that makes you think. I don't know which to do next because I loved both of these books. We'll do 3 Hours by Rosamund Lupton. This is set in a school shooting, so I will say, trigger warning, it does happen at a school shooting. It is set in the UK, so I'm pretty confident it's a shooting, but it is basically set in the 3 hours that the lockdown happens at the school. It's an excellent book. It is so good. It is heartbreaking. It is accurate. It's like a horrible book to read, but at the same time, I recommend it to everyone. And finally, The Beekeeper of Aleppo by Christy Leftieri. Now, I, again, with the same with the other two, I just couldn't stop thinking about this book. I always say it is one of my top books, but again, it is quite triggering, so I don't recommend it as much as I wish I could, because it's so beautiful, but it is so heartbreaking, and it is heartbreaking to read. It follows the story of an asylum seeker, essentially, and how they go from their country to becoming an asylum seeker. And it is just beautiful. It's a beautiful book, but it's also, it's stuck with me forever. And I will always be glad that I picked this book up because it was so random for me. And I do think everyone should read it. I think, especially at the time that we are right at this moment in the UK, everyone should read this book. And that is all of the genres. If I've missed one that you wanted, I am sorry. Please tell me. I can always do another one. I also thought I could do 3 books that I would not recommend for every genre. So if you want to say that, let me know, because I definitely could do it with some books that are on these bookshelves. If you did enjoy the video, I would very much appreciate any engagement. So that's liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing if you are new. I would love to have you here. If you have any recommendations for books in these genres for other people, please comment, leave them. I always love my videos to be a little bit of like a community board. So if you have recommendations for each of those genres, comment them. I probably need them as well. Anyway, I shall hopefully see you in another video, but even if I don't, thank you so much for watching till the end.